Everybody tells you to do your own research in crypto to the point where it's almost a cliche. But how exactly do you do your own research? In today's video, I'm going to go through how I go about researching new crypto and DeFi projects. If you like this sort of topic, be sure to like and subscribe to this video. And before I go any further, I want to remind you that what I say is not financial advice. Let's get into the video. First, a general framework for how I go about doing my own research in crypto. I like to divide it into two parts. The first part is finding out about new projects. So that is finding out that a project exists or that it's up and coming. Second part is to actually do due diligence on those projects. So it's not just enough to find out about a new project. You also have to actually find out if the project is worth investing time and money into. So in today's video, I'll go through both those parts one after the other. First, how do I find new projects? I have a few different sources that I like to use to find projects. The first couple of these are based on data and stats, and then the other ones are a bit more nuanced. The first place that I go to track stats for DeFi projects, and this is one of the best tools overall for DeFi analysis, is DeFi Llama. DeFi Llama tracks the total value locked in DeFi protocols across all different chains. Total value locked basically means the amount of money that's deposited into either liquidity pools, loans, or other types of pools on DeFi projects. And so looking at the change in total value locked on either protocols or chains over time is a great way to find projects that are already starting to trend upwards. I use this analysis both to find small chains, small layer ones and layer twos that are starting to gain some traction, and also to find protocols that have outperformed the market recently. What I like to look for personally is protocols that have both outperformed the market and that have shown growth over the past week and over the past month. That means that it's sustained growth, not just a one-time event. What I also like to do once I've identified that is zoom into protocols and see how long that growth has sustained for. And if I can, if it's a layer one, I like to look at that growth in terms of the layer one's native token. What this can do is tell you whether new money is flowing into the ecosystem or whether the TVL growth is solely a matter of the chain's native token appreciating in price. And so that is how I use DeFi Llama to find new chains and protocols to look into. Another resource that has great stats for DeFi projects is called Token Terminal. Token Terminal shows the revenue for different projects. So this is the amount of money that users are actually paying to use DeFi and Web3 projects. So it's easy to talk about a project having a great community or having a lot of backers or anything like that, but are people actually paying to use it? That's what Token Terminal tells you. And so I've used Token Terminal to find some great projects that I've covered on this channel, like Synthetics, which had already been around for a while, but I noticed its resurgence on Token Terminal, or GMX, which has a lot of revenue despite not being in the top 100. And there's a lot of other great projects if you look through here and look at how much revenue projects are making and then look at whether they're growing or not. Because believe it or not, there are actually projects like Ethereum name services that have grown their revenue during this bear market. The next way that I find new tokens to research is to look at newly launched projects. The first place that I do this is I go back to our trusted friend DeFi Llama and I look at the recent tab. These are protocols that were newly added to DeFi Llama. And yes, sometimes things are added weeks after they're launched, but oftentimes these things have been launched within the past 24 or 48 hours. And the cool thing about finding projects that are newly launched is that you can be one of the first people in. However, you do have to be careful because a lot of projects, especially inflationary DeFi projects, will launch at a very high price. So it's important to do the due diligence part that we'll talk about in the next part of this video. The next place that I'll find newly launched projects is a website called Ape O'Clock, link in the description. This is a calendar of recent and future launches for anything crypto related you can imagine. NFT mints, crypto games, DeFi projects. It's got all these upcoming launches, and they even have some additional information about the safety and security of the project. The next tool in my arsenal for sourcing potential investments is Twitter lists. Twitter lists can be a very powerful tool for finding alpha, and there's a lot of different ways that you can find accounts who frequently post about new projects and have a good track record. But one trick that I like to do is when I see a project trending or suddenly blowing up I'll use the Twitter advanced search feature to search about who was posting about the project before it blew up. And then I'll add those accounts to lists so I can see what sorts of projects they talk about in the future, because we already know they predicted one project correctly. The next and final way that I source potential crypto investments is through wallet tracking. This involves finding the wallets of whales and seeing which projects they're accumulating and investing in now. There's a few different ways that you can find whale wallets, but some of the best ones are to go to Etherscan and look at tokens they are interested in and see who the top holders are. Sometimes that's going to involve the team, but you want to find individuals who purchase those tokens on the market. Another way is to go to zapper.fi and look at which wallets are trending. Oftentimes, those will be known DeFi founders or DeFi whales. And then the final way that I like to find whale wallets is to go to DBank. And then what I'll do is I'll look at the wallets with the highest Web3 social score. And you don't just want to look at the top 10, top 5 wallets here. It's worth going down through the top few hundred and finding wallets that seem to have a similar type of investment portfolio to you and that are actively accumulating new tokens. You don't want people who are only buying ETH, because that doesn't really tell you much information. And then once you find the wallets that you want to track, you can follow them on either Zapper, DBank, or other services and see which tokens they start to accumulate in the future. And those are the ways that I go about sourcing potential investments. Now that we've found our potential investments, it's time to do due diligence. And I think this is probably where most people go wrong. A lot of people find out about crypto projects early, but then they either search, should I invest in this project on YouTube? They search the project ticker on Twitter, or they go to the project's own Telegram group or Discord where everyone is screaming, this project is going to the moon. And the problem with that is that you're not really getting an unbiased opinion. Instead, what you should do is do your own due diligence, get an informed opinion, and then go to those venues with a critical, informed mind. So here's how I go about doing my due diligence. First thing that I'll do is always test out an application. Sometimes this can be one of the best ways to see, is this project going to be successful? Is the app useful? And I will say that some of my best investments have just been apps that I tried and I said, you know what, this is really useful to me. It will probably be useful to other people as well. The next place to go for due diligence is to a project's white paper or documents. Most projects have a link to their documents on their front page. Then once I'm there, there's 4 things that I like to look for, which have the acronym TTPS. And those are team, tokenomics, product, and security. Let's go through each of those one by one. First, we have the team. Who is behind this project? That includes both the founders and the backers. So do the founders have a history of launching other successful projects before? Or do they have a history of being involved in some shady projects? Or did they come out of nowhere? As far as the backers, is it backed by reputable players who have a history of adding value to projects they're involved in? Or is it by players who have a reputation for dumping tokens that they receive? Next, you want to look at the tokenomics. And these can really be divided into 2 different sections, the supply of the token and the demand. I have a lot more resources coming on tokenomics in the near future, but basically supply means how is the token distributed? So what percentage is going to the team and advisors and early investors versus to the community? And what's the vesting schedule for those tokens? So for example, there's some tokens where 99% of the tokens are sold to pre-sale people, and then those tokens vest linearly over a long period of time. That token is going to have basically ever expanding supply and ever increasing sell pressure for the foreseeable future. And then you also want to look at the demand for the token. Why would someone hold this token in the first place? Do they get rewards for holding it? Does the token accrue fees from that protocol? Does it have some use in the protocol? Does it have utility? Those are the sorts of things you want to look for in tokenomics. Then you get to the product itself. If you already tested out the application, you probably have an idea of what the product is like, but this is where you can really dive into why the team thinks that their project is fundamentally different from other products, and what's the roadmap for the future. Maybe it's comparable to other products right now, but they have some upcoming changes that will make it dramatically different. And the final thing that you want to look for in the documents is security. Here, there's really 2 things that I look for, and those are the contract being verified and an audit. Contract being verified means that if you go to the Blockchain Explorer of whatever chain this is on, whether that's Etherscan or something else, the contract has a nice check mark next to it. And what that means is that the contract has been uploaded to that blockchain explorer and it has been verified to match the contract that is actually deployed on the blockchain. And what this means is that people can see actually which code goes into this project's contract. The next thing I look for is an audit. Now, it's important here to actually read the audit. Don't just see whether it was audited, because sometimes projects are audited and significant risks are called out in the audit. But this is a good way to verify that there are no major exploits lurking underneath the hood of the project. And although having a verified contract and having an audit doesn't mean that a project is immune to rugs, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's immune to exploits, it's a good safety check to avoid obvious scams. Now, once I've done all of this research on my own, and I have a pretty strong opinion on the project already, that's when I would go into Telegrams and Discords to ask any lingering questions, clear up any things that might not be clear in my mind. And that is how I go about finding and doing due diligence on new crypto projects. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are there any other strategies you use for sourcing new projects? And let me know if there's any other types of videos you want me to make in the near future. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and subscribe. And until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.